This is a clip from one of our recent live streams. We stream live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. As a reminder, this is our second channel, Fish the Moment Live. Our main channel, Fish the Moment, is where we have all of our highly edited YouTube content. We spend 30 to 40 hours a week producing one YouTube video that's posted on the Fish the Moment channel every Thursday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. These videos include on-the-water footage of us actually fishing, as well as detailed instruction on how to use electronics, fish offshore, and a lot of other great information. Make sure to check out the Fish the Moment channel if you enjoy the content on this channel. What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another Fish the Moment live stream. Tonight, Randy and I are going to be doing a video that's right in our wheelhouse, whether it's better to fish shallow or offshore in the winter time. You guys probably already have your preconceived notions of what we're going to say. Randy's going to say shallow, I'm going to say offshore. But I think you guys are going to be a little bit surprised by what we have to say because we do like to fish both ways. We want to give you guys the best advice on when to fish both offshore and shallow based on water conditions, lake type, basically as much information as we can give you to give you the most or the best chance to catch fish in either of those situations. So Randy, how's it going tonight?
Man, doing good, Johnny. Just trying to stay warm. It is so dang cold, as you know, in this part of the country. We got single digits all next week. You know, it's a good time to talk about fishing and not be fishing because I think we're going to have ice on these lakes around here in the Ozarks by next week.
For sure, and I can't really get on the lake to film either. I'm trying to even go into southern Arkansas, and it's like frozen down there too, so it's just bad everywhere. And it's a great time to maybe do another data video or do something else. We'll figure it out. We'll make some content for you guys. Everyone seemed to like that data video from last week, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I did see a comment from Steven asking what data and spreadsheets we're going to have in this live stream. Unfortunately, don't have anything to pull up on the data side today, but I do have some other videos kind of cooking for you guys, so hopefully you'll enjoy that. But, good to see everyone on the stream tonight. We got Ernest, Joseph, Jack, Michael, Jake, Matthew, Timo, Timothy, Ron, PK, all kinds of guys on here, the usuals. How is everyone doing? So, Randy, let's just jump straight into it and start discussing shallow versus offshore fishing in the winter time. I think that a lot of guys get confused in the winter because they feel like the water's cold, you have water temperatures in the 40-degree range, and you just have to fish offshore regardless. Offshore fishing is the way to go because there's no way a bass could live up in super shallow water in the wintertime. But that's definitely not the case. And honestly, I find that I catch more big fish up shallow in the wintertime than I do offshore. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no doubt, especially this time of winter, Johnny, towards the late winter. And, you know, guys, if you're just tuning in now, you know, Johnny and I were having this conversation before we came on live about water temperature, like versus time of the day. And one of the aspects that I really want to talk about a lot tonight is the fact that a lot of people think when they're in terms of fishing deep and shallow in the wintertime, it has to do with water temperature, what the water temperature is. But to me, it's just as heavily influenced by the length of the daylight hours increasing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of the bass move in shallow and deep water both this time of year, especially by the fact that daylight hours increasing 2 or 3 minutes a day. And internally, this triggers something internally within a bass, you know, to move and to prepare and to get ready for spawning. And that's why this is a big transition time of year. Just like right now, we're getting hit by these temporary weather fronts. This isn't really typical. These are just Arctic fronts that come through once in a while. It'll get past it. It'll move on. It'll start warming up. But what I want to stress from the shallow standpoint a lot is more of the daylight hours affecting the bass versus the water temperature. Because, you know, if you look at the water temperature right now, it's going to be in the low 40s, upper 30s around a lot of parts of the country. And you normally think that, man, there's not going to be any shallow bass. They're all going to be at deep. And that's just one of the myths of fishing that we'll talk about tonight a little bit.
For sure, and honestly, depending on your water temperature around the country, it can dictate whether the offshore and shallow bite is going to be better or worse. So don't think that the water temperature isn't a factor, but like Randy said, time of day, daylight is a lot more important. And just to kind of give you an idea, I'm going to pull up a little map here just to show you guys what I'm talking about in terms of the lakes and things like that. So here's a quick reminder of some of the upcoming seminars we're offering on fishthemoment.com. These seminars are 3 hours long and are packed with graphics and highly detailed information about specific fishing techniques and bass behavior. Also check out our seasonal lake breakdowns, where we offer 40 GPS waypoints on lakes all across the country by season. All this is available at fishthemoment.com. So I'm pulling up Google Earth, and I just kind of want to show you some of the lakes that I fish in the wintertime a lot, and the differences for me personally on whether I'm fishing shallow or whether I'm fishing offshore. So, I grew up fishing a lot in central Arkansas. I actually grew up fishing in Wisconsin, but I spent my teenage years fishing in central Arkansas, and there's a lot of variety in the lakes around here that translate to lakes all across the country. That's why there's always a lot of good anglers from Arkansas. One of the places I love to fish is Lake Darnell. This is a lake on the Arkansas River. It's super muddy and shallow. And someone who jumped in the stream earlier wanted me to look at a lake that is naturally dirty, like a Ross Barnett in Louisiana, or any of those like shallow, real muddy lakes. This is basically a mud hole. And whenever I am going to a lake like this in the wintertime, really there's not that many offshore options. The only time I find that those fish really get offshore on the lake where the water is super muddy like this is if you can find a backwater where the water clears up significantly. And what I mean significantly is that you have like 3 to 4 feet of water visibility in the back of these backwaters. However, though, I never really find that happening on any of these lakes like a Lake Dardanelle. And usually the water visibility is anywhere from 6 inches like chocolate milk to about maybe 2.5 to 3 feet of visibility. And what I find on these lakes is that you can catch fish from the main river all the way into the backwaters throughout the entire winter. And I remember one year I was actually fishing right here by the boat ramp on Lake Dardanelle. Current was ripping. Water temperatures were 40.6 degrees when I launched the boat. 40.6. And they warmed up like 41, 42 degrees. Chocolate milk, like 6 inches of water visibility. Now I was catching them on a flat side crankbait, fishing a crankbait in 2 to 3 feet of water on these rocks. And I was catching some really good ones. I actually made a YouTube video about that. You guys may have seen it. And the thing about winter fishing is that the bass still need to eat. They need to feed. And so it doesn't really matter if the water temperatures are cold. If the bass don't eat, they're not going to survive. And an area like this where these rocks are is a great place for those bass to feed because it attracts food. These rocks here, these really nice chunk rock banks or riprap banks, they will attract heat whenever you have sunny days, and that's going to bring in crawfish and bring in bait fish. That heat helps the plankton and things grow around the rocks, which attracts the bait fish, the crawfish, which then attracts the bass. And you can catch fish in this dirty water super shallow when you have some sort of rock. So if I'm ever fishing on a super muddy lake, finding some sort of rock riprap is always a good option. Another thing that I find with these really muddy, dirty lakes is that there's always going to be some place on these fisheries where you have clear water, like back in the backwater back here. And this is a little strip pit that's on Lake Dardanelle. And if you can find any clear water on these lakes, usually you can't get that many offshore fish, but you can get a lot of suspended fish on like a jerkbait, things like that, in this clear water. And you can catch some really good fish in really, really cold, tough conditions when you get this clear water, when those bass are suspended. And we'll get into that a little bit more. Randy will talk more about that. I don't want to take up too much time here, but just to kind of give you a polar opposite, we have a lake like this, like Lake Dardanelle, that's super dirty. And on the flip side, we have a lake like Lake Washita over here, which is crystal clear, Highland Reservoir, similar to a lot of the lakes over there in the East Coast, like Hartwell, Lake Lanier, things like that. And this lake has anywhere from 7 to 10 foot of visibility at times. And the thing that's awesome about this lake is that because that water is so clear, it gives you a lot more options to fish offshore or shallow. Now, Lake Washita is special because it has offshore grass in it as well. And whenever you have hydrilla grass or some sort of vegetation, it changes the game in offshore or in fishing in the winter. And so what I find is that a lot of times around this area of the lake, there's not as much offshore grass. There's just a lot of standing timber and clear water, anywhere from 3 to 6 foot of visibility. And in these areas of the lake, a lot of these fish will set up offshore around these islands, and they'll set up in 30 to 60 feet of water sometimes, chasing bait fish, chasing shad in really deep water, and you can catch them suspended very deep. So the offshore bite's definitely an option. But there's also places on this lake, like up in Rabbit Creek and back in these creek areas, or you have shallow hydrilla grass. And you can catch fish in a foot of water, 2 foot of water all winter long, even when those water temperatures are brutal cold, like 39, 40 degrees, because that shallow hydrilla, milfoil, stuff like that, it will hold heat and it will attract bait fish and crawfish into the grass. So there's always going to be options on most lakes to fish both offshore and up shallow, regardless of the water visibility, the water clarity. What I will say, though, is that the clear water lakes are going to be better for offshore fishing. The dirtier water lakes are going to be better for shallow water fishing. And when you're on a lake like Lake Washita, if you want to fish offshore, find the clear water sections. But if you want to fish up shallow, you can always go up into the dirtier river sections, and you can find fish that are biting up in shallow water, even in brutal cold weather. So that's kind of what I wanted to give you guys, is just an overview of the shallow versus offshore concept. And I want Randy to kind of weigh in on that, and then I also kind of want to get your opinion as well, Randy. But what do you think about that overview there?
That's exactly right. I mean, every lake is unique to itself as far as the options that you have available based upon the water clarities of the lake, that are stable, because that's what you have to look at, especially when you're considering late winter fishing. Is you have to decide if the stability of the water is like where it is all the time, or if there's some environmental conditions that's altering that. Is the lake too low? Is it too high? Is there fresh, new mud coming into the lake? So there's a lot of variables that surround that. You know, like tonight, I think we're going to talk about sort of like grass lakes and non-grass lakes too. And one of the things I want to do, I sort of want to give you guys sort of an example of what I'm talking about from the shallow water winter patterns.
Thanks for checking out the video. If you made it this far, we'd really appreciate if you left a like on the video. It helps us out with the YouTube algorithm and gets these videos out to more people. Also consider subscribing. It's free and it lets you get notifications of every single one of our videos that we upload daily. Finally, remember to check out the main Fish the Moment channel, where we actually have on-the-water fishing footage as well as detailed graphics on electronics, offshore fishing, bass behavior, and a lot of other great information. Thanks for checking out the video, and we'll see you all in the next one.